What's going on, party people? Happy Monday. Thought I would rep my college for you today. Campbell University, the home of the Fighting Camels. I know you've heard me say it a million times, but I love my school, so I'm going to tell you about it every chance I get. Just like I tell you what it was like when I was a student at Lincoln Charter School many, many moons ago. Anyway, today we are going to continue right along with our Industrial Revolution unit. This week we are going to kind of expand on some things that we talked about last week, in addition to talking about a lot of new stuff. So go ahead and get your notebooks out and get ready to take some notes. There are going to be a series of 5 questions at the end of this Ed puzzle that you have to answer, because this Ed puzzle is a grade. It is a grade. So please, please, please watch it all the way through, answer the questions, and then you'll be good to go. Okay, but take notes. You can use your notes when you answer the questions. So, no need to treat it like a quiz. And without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so we talked on Friday about why England is such a good place for industrialization to begin. Talked about its colonies, bringing in a lot of raw materials. It had a good, stable government that was pro business, right? If you remember, around this time in the late 17, early 1800s, the Americans are having a revolution, the French are having a revolution, a lot of other countries are having a revolution. Well, the British had theirs a couple hundred years before this. So they're good, their government's stable, so they can focus on improving themselves, right? So in England, the first industry to become industrialized, like we talked about a little bit last week and you did a reading on, is the textile industry, talking to deal with cloth, right? Cotton cloth, to be specific. And before the Industrial Revolution, cotton cloth to make clothes with, linens with, was made by cotton being spun into thread and then wound into cloth. So you'd have to take the cotton, spin it into nice long threads, and then you weave that thread into great big cloth, and then you make things like this out of it, right? But you had to do all of that by hand, all of it. And that being done by hand, it was done in private homes. It was not done in factories yet. And that was known as the cottage industry because it was done in people's cottages. But that process of doing all that by hand and at individual people's homes was very slow, very inefficient, and there was not a lot of production. Okay, so it leaves a lot to be desired. Then we get some new inventions that are going to help us out a little bit. They're going to change the way textiles are made. We touched on these briefly last week. We're going to talk about them more in depth here in a second. These include the spinning jenny, the flying shuttle, the water frame, and the spinning mule. So we'll go through each of those right quick and we'll check them out. So this is the spinning jenny. It was invented by James Hargreaves. And as you can see, one person could spin 16 threads at once. So you get the threads, and normally you'd have to take like 2 and wind them and keep winding them into big cloth. Now one person can spin 16 all by cranking that wheel. So that's kind of a very crude machine that we're now going to expand even more on. Like the flying shuttle. This one too is hand operated. It was invented by John Kay, and it wove cloth, even more quickly than the spinning jenny. Okay, so again, another hand operated machine, but hey, at least this guy gets to sit down, right? And now here we have the water frame invented by Richard Arkwright, and this is still yet faster. And this is water powered. So if you remember, we talked a little bit last week about how a lot of these mills and factories that we're going to see were powered by water. And this one was water powered. And so was this one, the spinning mule, which was invented by Samuel Crompton. This was the fastest of them all. It produced the best quality thread. As you can see, it is absolutely huge, takes up a whole room, big room, and it's going to run on water power as well. And see, look, you've got all this big contraption. You got 3 people in here working. So you're making a lot of stuff and you don't have to have a lot of people supervising it, right? Now, Britain, because of all these inventions, going into the cotton or the textile industry would make you really, 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 really rich. Okay. It made it the most profitable crop in Britain and highly sought after. Now, here's the thing, you don't grow cotton in England, so you have to import it from somewhere else. And one place that grew and still grows a lot of cotton is the southeastern United States, where we live. And Britain demanded, we're going to talk about supply and demand, right? Britain demanded more cotton, which meant that the southern states had to up their supply. And, as supply goes up, demand goes down. But as demand goes up, supply goes down. If everybody wants something, the supply goes down. So then the supply has to catch back up. Which, while the supply is trying to catch back up, a lot of these plantation owners, they were kind of like, OMG, I can't farm that much cotton. I need more slaves. So the Industrial Revolution in England, in fact, led to increased demand for slave labor here in the southern United States, which is not something that we really think about all that much because we haven't even gotten to the Industrial Revolution in the US yet. But the Industrial Revolution in England has a very clear link to increased demand for slaves here in the southern United States. And this is all prior to the Civil War. This is all late 1700s and early 1800s, okay? So this is about 50, 60 years before the Civil War here in the United States, okay? So that's just a distinction that I want you to make in your brain. But that's all we're going to cover for today. I think, yep, that's all we're going to cover for today. So if you have any questions, please just jot them down and come ready to ask questions on Zoom tomorrow. If you can't be on Zoom tomorrow, that's fine. If you really do have an important question, well, all questions are important. So if you do have a question, send it to me in an email and I'll be glad to answer it. I will. Let's see. So right about now, you're going to have some questions pop up on the Ed puzzle, and I'll leave you to those, and I'll talk to you guys later. Have a good day. Okay, go.